Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
And welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. This is Francois, your co-host. I'm here with Roel. Hey, Roel.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty much. I'm okay, I guess. Just being at home, like everyone else.
Yeah. How are you doing in this shelter in place, keeping safe and not interacting with people?
It's not too bad because I still have the family at home. We can still go outside a little bit. We usually go for a walk every day. We're still authorized to go here. So if you keep your social distance going, so it's not that bad. I mean, it could be worse.
Yeah,
but
it could
what about
be.
you?
And I'm sheltering in place, but I'm essential at work. So I have been in the office, been deploying actually GPON. That's been a big project of mine for the past week because a lot of professors are working from home and they need better internet in order to teach. So I've been working on a project to deliver gigabit to a bunch of people.
Can you come and deliver gigabit to my house?
The only thing I don't do is trench fiber.
Yeah, and I guess you cannot come to Canada right now, right?
Yeah, I can't quite fly there yet, but I have seen a few airplanes in the air, which is kind of weird to just see a couple, one or two planes every once in a while.
Yeah, I guess they still have planes fly. You look at the real-time trackers, you can still see a whole bunch of planes. So not as much as usual, but they still have some going for sure.
Yeah. So fortunately, we're able to stay home and work on
exactly.
the podcast.
So this week we're going to talk about SMB Wi-Fi, so small and medium businesses Wi-Fi solutions. You and I, we usually focus on enterprise solutions. We talk a lot about Aruba, Cisco, the big guys, because that's what we just used to do for our job. But we had a few questions from some of the listeners on I guess more affordable or cheaper solution that people could deploy for small and medium-sized businesses. So we would just talk about that a little bit. And at the same time, we got approached by EnGenius and they sent us some of their APs, right? So they sent us some of their new Wi-Fi 6 APs and they're coming up with this solution called EnGenius Cloud. So we actually, decided to test the solution and then try to see, what those type of solution would bring to a business and compare that to, the traditional enterprise solution we know more about. So in this episode, we come into two sections. First, we'll talk about, SMB Wi-Fi. So talk about, what type of solution you could expect, the price point and so on. And then we'll talk about the EnGenius Cloud solution and then give you guys our our review of the solution and see what need could fit depending on which environment you're working with.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good series because this is not one single episode on SMB Wi-Fi. We plan on having a couple of more episodes, especially talking about other solutions out there. EnGenius is the first one we'll talk about, and we will talk about our experiences using it, kind of the comparisons at the end of the series of SMB episodes that we do. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, exactly. And we try to also find a few criteria that are important for small businesses. And then, like you said, we'll try to get different solutions and then create, I guess, a battle of Wi-Fi solutions for SMBs. So if we talk about SMB, small and medium businesses, just in general, when it comes to IT, they don't have one person dedicated for the Wi-Fi, right? They usually have one or couple of people dedicated to the entire IT department, or sometimes they would just track the IT management to a third-party company, right?
Yeah, or even somebody who's not technical at all, just in charge of technology, just because they seem to be the most technical.
Exactly. Yeah. The guy was a pie at home, and now he's taking care of the IT for the business. Yeah. So when it comes to finding the perfect Wi-Fi solution for SMB business, they're not gonna see it and approach it the same way as we would do it in the enterprise space. Even though the Wi-Fi could be critical for their business, right? So you kind of have to try to see, what's important for them. And I think if you worked a lot with SMB, Rowell, I have.
Yeah, I've worked quite a bit.
Yeah, I worked on a couple of projects with SMBs, and I think the important for them is obviously the cost, right? So they don't have tons of money to spend on hardware, licensing, support, and so on. So they want a solution that's gonna do what they want, but with a much lower price point than what you would typically get for enterprise. So that's one important thing. I think the second, if we were to just list the priorities of important things for SMB, I think the second thing that's very important is the ease of installation, the ease of deployment, the ease of configuration. Right? They want a solution that's pretty much plug and play. And then easy to so they set it up once, kind of forget about it, and then they know the Wi-Fi works.
Yeah, and of course, like that would be the highest, those two, because that's the first thing on the top of their mind is as long as it meets their budget and it's easy to configure. I think that would be kind of their an easy way for them to make a purchase. But there are other criteria too, right? Go ahead and talk about the next one, Francois.
Yeah, the next one, reliability, right? They want a solution that's going to work, right? They don't want something that's be on and off, or something that's not stable, buggy. They want something that they can rely on. Like I said, you set it up the first time, and then you kind of forget about it. It just works.
Yeah, that's a big factor too, because when you talk about reliability, I think actually when somebody talks to me about reliability for their SMB, a lot of times that might be a big focus, which is, does it work? And then is it easy to install? And the cost is low, then they typically just go for it, right? They're not looking for a lot of advanced features. But I think those top three criteria right there would allow them to just pick one, because they just need Wi-Fi to work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the reliability also comes back to the fact that they might not have the staff that has the knowledge to troubleshoot Wi-Fi, right? So they just want a solution that works and minimize the issue they have. So that, I would say, that's the main criteria that SMB will look into. And then after that, we wanted to talk a little bit more features, like the feature set that you get with the SMB Wi-Fi solution. How does it compare to the enterprise Wi-Fi solutions? And I think this is going to be important for SMB, depending on what business they do, or what's their core business, right? For some SMBs, they might not care about advanced features. For other SMB might care advanced feature because they have a specific environment, right? So depending on what this is doing, they might do more advanced, maybe guest access, or more advanced external antenna options and things like that, right? And then the last criteria we wanted to talk about is privacy. Security is the big fear or important thing to look into for SMB, not only for the Wi-Fi, but for the entire network. Or I guess if you just take back even, but yeah, security is always important for small and medium businesses. So we'll talk about the security that you have access to when you use SMB Wi-Fi solutions, and then we'll try to compare that once again to the enterprise world. Sounds good. So recap. Yeah. So just to recap, we'll talk about price, ease of configuration, installation, reliability, the feature set, and security. So this week we'll talk about EnGenius, and so they have different solutions. When you go to their website, you'll see the product that they sell. They sell APs, indoor, outdoors, switches, and they came up with this new solution called the EnGenius Cloud. Right, and when you purchase APs that are compatible with that solution, it's actually very easy to set up, and we did that a week ago in both of our houses with Wi-Fi to their EnGenius solution just to test a week, and it's so we just wanted to talk process and then go back to those criteria about them specifically for the EnGenius solutions. As a side note. We also create a video that we're going to put on YouTube where we explain how to set up the dashboard. So just if you start from scratch with a brand new EnGenius dashboard, how do you set it up? How do you onboard an AP? How do you configure SSID? So we went through the process and we recorded that video. So we'll put it on YouTube if you guys are interested to know how to do that.
Yeah, and I think if you compare EnGenius to other solutions, the ease of configuration is ridiculously easy. It's not like configuring when you compare it to enterprise. It's not like you have to do command line and then start configuring a whole lot of things to get it up and running. With EnGenius, it's more like I have an AP. Let me use an app to configure it, and then you're up and running within a few minutes.
Yeah, it's super easy. If you guys know about Mist or Meraki, I guess, it's kind of like the same, right? So like you said, you have an application on your phone. You log into your dashboard, which everything is in the cloud, right? So as long as you have internet connection, you're good. Then you connect the AP to an internet connection, and then you scan the barcode that you have at the back of the AP from the application, and then it will pretty much register that AP into your inventory. And once you have the AP into your inventory, you can assign it to a site that you had created in your dashboard. So it's super easy as long as you have internet connection. It's just going to work. You don't have to you don't have to mess with having a local controller, making sure the AP can discover the local controller. If you have different layer 3 networks, you don't have to worry about layer 3 discovery and all of these things. You just need internet access. You connect the AP, and then the AP will find the cloud.
Yep.
So the ease of connection is really, really nice. They also have, like previously, prior to using the EnGenius Cloud, they also had like a dedicated controller that they call the Sky Key that you could install into your local network, and then this will act as the controller. So AP comes in, it will discover the controller and then register, and then from the Sky Key you could do configuration, or you could connect to a management platform that they called Easy Master. And it's very similar to, if you guys are familiar with Unify from Ubiquiti, it's very similar to that solution. You have, some sort of software that will act as a controller, and then you connect to that, and then you configure it there. So that solution still exists. You can still purchase the Sky Key from EnGenius and then have your APs connect locally. Or you could have the EnGenius. And they also have like a bridging program that allows you to connect the Sky Key to the EnGenius Cloud. So if you currently already have a Sky Key with your AP, you could add the Sky Key to the cloud, and now you can manage everything from the cloud.
Yeah, I think having that Sky Key and being able to manage that in the cloud is one of the bigger factors, especially if you're not going to be on site and you need to remotely manage the wireless network, or even the switches that EnGenius offers. I think the one thing to note here is that there's two different types of APs. One that EnGenius has just for EnGenius Cloud, and then there's another a type of AP that you could use for the on-prem solution. And it's just a matter of which one you prefer. I like the cloud version because then I don't have to deal with another piece of hardware, which maybe some SMBs might not want to do. because of something else that they need to keep track of, or if that fails for whatever reason, they might not know what to do with it. I think having the EnGenius Cloud removes all of that complexity, even though it might not be that complex, but you remove something that they don't have to manage or consider. It's just a lot easier to use the EnGenius Cloud.
I guess I can talk about experience, because before EnGenius came up with their EnGenius Cloud, late last year, they sent us their very first Wi-Fi 6 AP, and they didn't have the cloud at that time. So you could install the Easy Master to act controller, right? And they still have it. I have a solution where you can actually install that Easy Master piece of software in AWS Amazon Cloud, right? And so I tried it for myself, because I've never used the Amazon Cloud before. I wanted to try it out, and the EnGenius have a video. I think it's like 30 minutes, and it helps you set up that Easy Master in the AWS interface, and it's very easy. So you also have that option if you don't have the new APs compatible with the cloud. You could set up your own Easy Master in Amazon AWS Cloud, and then once you have that, you can register APs using the MAC address, and they also have what they call a check code at the bottom of the AP that you put into Easy Master, and then you can have management console in the cloud, in the public cloud as well. So that's also an option you have. But you have, like you said, Roel, if you go that route, you have to set up the Easy Master yourself in the cloud. With the EnGenius Cloud, everything is there for you. You just have to, scan the barcode and the AP is there. So they made it easier. And I think, I don't exactly their roadmap, but I think they also have other features that they want to add to the cloud, EnGenius Cloud, maybe some AI in the future, or other features that you could see in enterprise solutions.
Yeah, I think that would be the biggest advantage of using the EnGenius Cloud, is being able to get those features faster. And then if you use the SkyKey and install that in Amazon AWS, then now you got to manage another AWS instance and pay for that. And so it's just, for me and thinking about SMBs, just much easier to go with EnGenius's own cloud and use that platform.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Okay, so we talked about the ease of configuration. Let's go back and talk about so what do you think about the price, Roel? Is that expensive?
The price is very affordable. I think when we talk about AP prices, it's a lot of the big companies can afford the higher price, but EnGenius comes at a very reasonable price point that I think for a Wi-Fi 6 AP and getting into Wi-Fi 6, it's a no-brainer to go there, because if you're needing multiple access points, or maybe you've got a handful of sites, I don't think you're gonna break the bank with this at all. Especially when it comes to using the cloud. You might know of solutions where you need to pay a monthly or yearly license in order to use the cloud management platform. And with EnGenius, you don't have that. So like the price point is just, there's no barrier to entry there to get started. It's just a matter of purchasing the hardware, and then you can get started.
Yeah, so just to give you guys, and they have 4 APs that are today compatible with their cloud versions. They have one that's Wi-Fi 5, so AC wall plate AP, a 2x2. They have one that's Wi-Fi 5, so AC 2x2, but that's not a wall plate, just typical AP. And that's you can purchase this one from Amazon for $158. And then they have a Wi-Fi 6 AP, a 2x2 and a 4x4. And I don't have the exact pricing of these ones, but I think they should be around $2 for the 6 APs. Then you have the managed APs, so the one that are compatible with the cloud, but you can still use with your own Easy Master or SkyKey. And for you have, it can start as low as $94 on Amazon, and for the Wi-Fi 6 AP, $184 for the 2x2, right? So even if you want to test Wi-Fi 6 at home, you can buy that for your house, a couple of them, and then you can test Wi-Fi 6.
Yeah, that's what I mean by excuse me, by being a very affordable Wi-Fi 6 AP to begin with and get started with Wi-Fi 6. And I don't see why anyone wouldn't want to try doing this. It's definitely a good way to get started to learn about Wi-Fi 6, and maybe a $1,000 access point is just not in your budget. So for the cost of these APs, you can get a couple of Wi-Fi 6 APs for the cost of one from a big major vendor.
And also, I think what's important to mention here is buying or purchasing the equipment from EnGenius is, it's very easy. Like if you're used to purchasing equipment for the enterprise space, it has nothing to, nothing to compare with. Like you can simply go on Amazon, purchase the AP. No need for quotes or proposal. No crazy MSRP versus the discounts. No licenses, right? So it's only CapEx. You purchase it, you use it. You don't have to pay support or anything like that. So it's just like as easy as to buy something for your consumer, right?
Yeah. I think having the no licensing is the best part especially for SMB, because cost is such a big factor that having maybe that license, maybe it's built into this price, but still a much affordable rate compared to others. And I just think the licensing in general in the industry is it's getting out of control. It's hard to figure out what kind of licensing you need. And then no one likes it that their access points become a brick if the licensing expires, right?
Yeah.
Because you have purchased the hardware, why can't you just use it? Why do you have to continue paying for some vendors? There aren't many updates that come out when you're paying for licensing. So why even have to pay for licensing? Maybe the support, but for SMB, if you're setting up a simple Wi-Fi network, you're not going to be calling support very often in order to use the access point, and then maybe that goes into reliability of these access points when you talk about support. But there's a lot to consider, and in comparison to the other players, this is, I think, a really good solution.
Yeah, and even if you have an issue with it, you could buy a new one. The cost is not very expensive upfront, so you can just buy a new one and replace it.
Pretty much, that's exactly what you could do. So we talked about the pricing, ease of configuration. Why don't we go into the reliability, Francois? Because you and I have both been using the access point. I actually swapped out the access point I use here at home and put in the EnGenius Wi-Fi 6 access point. It's the ECW230, and I've been using that for a couple of weeks. I've got about 22 devices on it, and I have to say that the access point itself has been very good. I haven't had any issues with it at all.
Yeah, so I use the same for my house, and I didn't have as much devices connected to it, but the experience has been pretty good for me too. The only thing is I all out and I installed the beta code on mine. So I had like a couple of glitches a couple times, especially when the signal strength would go very low. I would just somehow lose the network, even though my Wi-Fi was still. But I think that's part of one of their feature, their band select feature. So I mean, it's just like any other solutions. Just stick with a stable code. I was just messing up in my lab and beta. And don't even know why, but I did it. But no, the is pretty reliable. Haven't had any issue either. I'm actually connected to my EnGenius AP right now. Are you connected to your EnGenius AP?
I am, yeah. I'm connected to it via Wi-Fi. I've got decent signal. I've been able to do. I will say what was most impressive is because we're sheltering in place. Both of my kids have had to do Zoom meetings for their classes. And so there's been a time where me and my two kids all have had a Zoom meeting at the same time. And I would say it's been rock solid for all three of us being on a Zoom meeting.
Yeah. So overall, the reliability of the solution is obviously we only have one AP, so we didn't, it's roaming or anything like that. But I don't have really any complaint about reliability here. And also we didn't use switches.
Yeah, I would say we didn't use the switches, but I would say that using the single access point and putting as many devices as I can on it, I haven't seen any performance hits for this low cost AP.
2.4 and 5 gigs.
Yep, using both bands. The one thing I would say about configuration wise, because I did use the auto. I wanted to see what auto settings would do.
Okay.
The 2.4 is selecting non-overlapping channels. That's the only thing I've seen so far.
Okay. For me, I don't know which channels. Oh, I disabled 2.4. So yeah, I only use 5 gigahertz. Yeah,
very nice.
I only use 5 gigahertz. So I cannot tell you which channel it's using. On 5 gigahertz, it's using channel 40.
Yeah, I am on channel 149. I think I set it to a 40 megahertz channel width. I can't remember what the defaults were. I think that's another thing to consider for SMBs is they might not mess with transmit power and channels and just use auto. And so I think this goes beyond reliability, but this AP specifically doesn't support DFS, so you're only limited to a few channels, and having it at 80 megahertz default would, unless let's say a site uses multiple APs, multiple EnGenius APs, they may run into some issues if they're all on 80 megahertz channels, right? So that's just one thing to consider.
It's a perfect segue to talk about the different features, right? Talk about the feature set that this solution is providing and how does it compare to typical enterprise solutions we used to. Personally, I thought the features were very good. Plenty for SMB, for most SMB's businesses. And you even have some of the enterprise level features available to you.
I was actually surprised with for one, the security features, right? Because we've had episodes where we talked about OWE. I think we were wondering when people are going to start supporting WPA3, and EnGenius has both of those features enabled, or you can enable those features on their access points.
Yeah, they have OWE, they have WPA3 PSK with SAE, and they have two modes. They have the WPA3 only, or they have a mixed mode, WPA3 and WPA2, and they also have WPA3 Enterprise.
Yeah, and they will go through when you're selecting the security type. They actually try to help the user who's configuring this to understand what's less secure or more secure. And so obviously with open, it just says less or no secure. Same with OWE, has like one notch better than open. And then as you go through the pre-shared key, it labels it as secure, but it's not of a color green. And so the WPA2 Enterprise and WPA3 Enterprise are both more secure with like the green bars. If you were to measure it out between 1 and 3 bars, those two being the most secure.
And talking about security, what I really liked as well is if you select WPA2 PSK and you enter a password, it will generate a Wi-Fi access QR code. So if you want to connect, you can scan that QR code and the device will automatically connect to the network using the password.
Yeah, you have a nice option to print it out. So if you've got maybe a lobby area, or maybe this is for a coffee shop, you can print it out for your visitors to scan. Now, you just got to be aware to make sure that it's the real QR code. So you might want to make sure no one put a different QR code on top of it. But it is a nice, easy way to get people to onboarded to your Wi-Fi network.
Yeah, using a password, I guess. Not open. Yeah. So,
right,
yeah. So the security features are pretty nice. They also have 11R and 11W. So you could also, enable these guys. What I thought was nice as well is they have, in the radio settings, they have, the power in dBm. So you actually change the transmit power in dBm and dB per dB. So you have flexibility there, and you could obviously, like you said, you could set it to auto as well. But if you mess with the transmit power, you have to that. Also, you can change the meter rate. So that's not something you see everywhere. Here you can do it under the radio settings, and you also have some other features where you can disable ABG on your radios. So if you don't want to support legacy devices, you can just disable those directly into the radio settings. And also mesh option if you want to do mesh. Let's say you need to install an AP and you can run a cable or something. You can enable the mesh option for that AP to connect back to the network using mesh. Obviously, it's not the recommended, so it's there if you need it.
Yeah, I'd be curious of how well that feature works. So you do have to onboard your access points to the EnGenius Cloud, but if you have never connected it to the cloud before, I was curious, like how would it connect to another EnGenius AP via mesh, and would that work very seamlessly for you, or is there anything else that you would have to do in order to make that work? But I can see this being a nice feature for SMBs where cabling is not necessarily an easy thing to do for them. They might be limited with the cabling they have. And having at least some sort of coverage in their office would be viable via mesh.
And sometimes, like when you're SMBs, you're dealing with, maybe houses or very old buildings where it's not easy to just run a cable, right? So in those type of environments, maybe it's just easier to do mesh if you have, a couple of offices that they need Wi-Fi. In those situations. Other features that I was really pleased about is the cloud radius built into the EnGenius Cloud, which I found was amazing. And if you want to, I guess, level up the security of your Wi-Fi, this is the perfect solution. So they have what they call the cloud radius, where you can actually add users, and for each users you will add the email address, the name, and the password, and then these are credentials that the users can use to connect to the Wi-Fi using WPA2 or WPA Enterprise, and that's actually what I'm using right now. And it's very easy to set up. And then when you connect, your OS will ask you for username and password. You just put your username and password, and then you connect, and it's using .1x, and it's using radius, and you don't have to set up radius servers. You don't have to worry about all of that.
And how did you deal with the certificate?
So the first time you connect, it pops up, and this is the certificate, right, from the server, and then you decide to accept or not. I accepted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the ease of use for the cloud radius portion really eliminates the complexity of building their own radius server or their own authentication server. A lot of SMBs might not even have that to begin with. And so if they did want to go a step further in security, then within the EnGenius Cloud, just configure those radius users there, and then you've got WPA2 or WPA3 Enterprise.
Yeah, so I guess the only drawback is you cannot really tie that database with an existing user database. Maybe that's a feature that if you're dealing with a very small business, to add and remove people, you can show someone do it, or you can have it do it for the people if you're managing their Wi-Fi network. It's pretty easy. I think it's a very nice way to increase your security in an easy way. And I think I don't know, think about enterprise solutions, like they should have something like that. Like I'm thinking about Meraki. Do they have a feature of that? I don't think so. Huh?
Yeah, they do.
They do? Okay.
They have a similar feature. Yeah, I don't. The clients that I've ran into don't really use it that much, but they do have the ability to tie into another authentication server.
Okay. Yeah. So I was very pleased with that. Even at home, you can have radios. It's super easy. You set it up once, and then you connect, your devices, and then that's it.
Yeah, I think that would be the next step for EnGenius, is to add a way. I didn't see the setting at all, which is to add another authentication server. So that way, maybe if you did want to use Enterprise and 802.1x, is to point it to another authentication server. I think that would be a nice setting to have. I just didn't see it. Maybe I missed it somewhere, but definitely when we look at Cloud Radius users, it's more like you create the user there, and then you're authenticating them based on the authentication list that's on EnGenius.
Yeah, and you also have, when you configure the security under the SSID, you have an option to do custom radius, and then you can select your own radius server for authentication and accounting.
Okay, that's the part I didn't see.
Yeah. So you have a drop list, and you select EnGenius Cloud or custom radius. And if you do custom radius, you can use your own. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to mess with my AP settings since I'm on it, because I'm afraid it's going to reboot my AP.
Hello? Are you there?
I'm still here. I'm here. I didn't change anything.
Yeah, another feature that I actually didn't find on the EnGenius itself. I saw it online, but they said they have an API for the EnGenius Cloud, which could be nice. This is usually something you'll see for the more enterprise solution like Mist. Have APIs if you want to, create your own programs, integrate with the system. I've seen it on the website, but looking for it inside the solution, I couldn't find it yet. So maybe it's something they're working on, and they'll come up with it in the near future.
I don't know if it's in the EnGenius Cloud or in the SkyKey solution, but I would say if someone is a managed service provider and they were deploying EnGenius APs, I think the API would be very useful in building out their own dashboards or their own scripts to deploy much easier.
Yeah, I agree. And then I'll just add the link where they're talking about the API, so you guys can see that if you go to the show notes. You guys will be able to take a look at that. Now let's talk about some of the features that they don't have and that you would typically have in the enterprise solution. So first, they don't have any RF profiles. So if you want to create different radio settings, radio profiles, I don't know how. I guess you can. Yeah, it's not there, or you would have to create different network. I guess
the different networks. Yeah. In the dashboard, you have the option to create different organizations, and within the organization, create different networks. So, in my point of view, that's more like I have one organization, but I have different offices. So maybe I create them as different networks. But yeah, if you wanted to get creative with RF, then you would have to create a new network and assign those settings to that specific network. That can get a little messy, but I think that's a workaround to maybe not having the ability to do RF profiles. Although SMBs, they typically don't think about RF profiles to begin with if they're just using auto. So maybe having the auto portion be a little bit better would be beneficial for some of these companies.
I agree. Other features they might not have is the advanced log. So they do have logs that tells you when you connect, disconnect, roam, and so on. But they don't have, I guess a nice view that would tell you per client, the IP addresses, and kind of timeline. Yeah. So I've seen that they talk about it on their website. They have something called the client timeline on their website. But I couldn't see it on my cloud. So maybe it's one of the feature they're working on, and that will become available when they upgrade. But so and also what I found is for the cloud interface is it's not dynamic, so you have to refresh the page if you want the data to refresh. So that was a little bit, I guess that's something they can work on. That's easy to fix.
Yeah, I'm used to I'm just used to refreshing it, but yeah, it doesn't auto refresh. So if you're looking at maybe the bandwidth or the traffic, you might have to refresh it. And then you can't drill down to shorter than a day, right? So if you wanted to look at what happened bandwidth wise, or download, upload, that kind of thing, and a number of clients within a portion of a day, you can't. You can only look at a day's worth. But the logging features are very, very basic, right? You don't get the debug type of log where you can see the exact details of what's happening down at the AP level and association and the reasons why it didn't associate. You don't have that much when it comes to troubleshooting this wireless network. But again, it is catered towards SMB, so that type of information might not be relevant, or maybe the person who's managing it wouldn't even understand what's happening with that log.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then a couple of other features that I was thinking about, they don't have any spectrum analysis integrated to the AP, or they don't have any capture features or options. That's just stuff you typically find in enterprise solutions. So, I mean, if you look at the overall, if you look at the price that you pay versus the number of features you get, I believe it's a pretty good value.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's not like it's a terrible solution, right? Just because it's missing some enterprise features, you just gotta consider that this is not. We're not saying this is for very large enterprises, although I could see that this would work with enterprises. It just depends on what your feature set is, what you're looking for in terms of features. But if for a wireless network, if you're looking for basic wireless and you just need some reliable features like WPA 2 or 3 enterprise, being able to change transmit and channels, being able to tie it into to radius. What else? I mean, those are the most basic things to get a wireless network started. And if you just need that connectivity, EnGenius can give it to you, because that's what they're giving you here with the price point. It's very affordable. Now, because there is no spectrum analysis on the AP, that's how the cost of the AP is much lower, because they're not having to add an extra component to the AP. And maybe packet capture can come down as a feature in the future. I guess it depends on how they've developed their APs and the software. But I would just, maybe it depends on how much processing resources it puts on the access point itself. But overall, I think if you're deploying for SMB, this would be more than enough to get started. I've even deployed other solutions in that are a little bit larger than SMB, and I still would have thought they could have gone with EnGenius, because they not only have just indoor APs, but they also have outdoor. So they do. I could see this working in many different environments. But again, it just depends on what the requirements are for that SMB. But I would say this would fit most of the requirements.
Yeah, I think I was impressed with that, and the price that you paid, the no licensing, ease of purchasing, the ease of installation. It's a pretty nice. And then there, if you look at their EnGenius Cloud, I think it's just the beginning, and I think they can keep on adding features that will make it even more appealing for small business, even some small enterprise like you. So yes, let us know what you thought about this SMB series. If you have other comments, we try to take all the comments we got from Twitter, from you guys, and compile something that would try to answer most of the questions. But if you have other questions, don't hesitate. Or if you want us to talk about another aspect of SMB Wi-Fi, just let us know. Some people have asked us to talk about the Unify solution as well, so we'll probably do that, and then maybe talk about other SMB solutions we're thinking about that. So yeah, let us know what you think. Want to know more about the EnGenius, we'll put some pictures. We'll share some pictures in the show notes. Like I said, we have this video that helps you to set it up, and then we'll put some links in the show notes if you guys want to go website and learn a little bit more about it. All right. So thank you guys for listening. That's it for the week, and we'll catch you back next week on the next episode.
Yeah, thank you guys.